everyone, and welcome back to our Ellipse Unsealed podcast. Today we have a very spooky and special episode planned for everyone. As you can see, Bobby has his pumpkin friend. He has the hood up. He's ready to go.
Feeling spooky.
Yes, definitely.
You got to feel spooky to be spooky. I think you got to get in the mood, right?
Yeah. For sure. Yes, I know. I wish I would have came more prepared.
You got your fall decorations up. We know you're a big fall person. I can see since the last time we talked, you've got a wreath up now. So
yes, yeah, we have the fall up. The spooky decor will be coming out October 1st. It's kind of the schedule for that. So, but yeah. We have Mary Myers with us from WorldMax. She has joined us on this podcast, I think once before, maybe twice. So I'll let Mary do her introductions here in a bit, but I'll let Rebekah kind of start off. Rebekah is from a podcast called Haunted AF. So she is going to be tying in a lot of the spooky content for us today, I guess. So
Rebekah, see how it plays out.
Yeah, we'll see. We're excited. Rebekah, do you want to kind of give a deeper dive on who you are real quick?
Sure. My name is Rebekah Black, and I am the co-host of Haunted AF, the podcast. My co-host is Julie Fisk. We are both former radio DJs here in Dallas, Texas, and we decided that after we both got fired in radio, we were like, let's start a podcast. And we both have been kind of obsessed with ghosty paranormal stuff for the entire time of our friendship. And we just decided that we were going to put that together and make a podcast with it. And so we always say it's like when you come to listen to our show, it's like, you know, you're in 8th grade again and you're sitting around at night and the lights are all off and you're telling spooky stories. So they're real ghost stories told by real people. But we aren't limited to paranormal. We also do Bigfoot, alien, what we call glitch in the matrix stories or like simulation theory stuff. We will go down the weird rabbit holes with all of our fans.
Love it.
Yes. The 8th grade is too real though. I just remember like sitting back in 8th grade in our gym with the lights off and my English teacher with the flashlight in her face telling like the dog like dripping story. I feel like everyone knows that.
Yeah. We always did. We would do like light as a feather, stiff as a board.
Yes.
You try to lift somebody up with your 2 fingers. Yeah.
Oh my
God. It made me think of when I was literally in 8th grade was the first time I heard about the rumor that Paul McCartney had died in a car accident in the 60s and they replaced him. Have you heard of this?
I have not.
Oh my God. Has anybody heard of this?
No.
It's real. So you just look it up because you'll find out all. And then what you learn and what happened. This is funny too, because it was a DJ on the radio that was perpetuating this for me because I didn't have internet to look at. It wasn't a book. It was just DJ one day. It came on like, it was like, hey, everybody, did you know this is the anniversary of the day that Paul died? And if you go and you play, you know, this song backwards, it says Paul is dead. I buried Paul. And if you listen to Come Together, it says this. And so we went, of course, like all my friends went to the record player and started putting these records on. And sure enough, listening to Come Together, it's like, there's all these noises and weird, anomalies in the recording that matched up with what this guy just told us. And it was freaky. And we stopped, put the record player down and ran.
Yeah, I'm out.
Like I always heard that, like, what was that album cover of the Beatles where it was John Lennon that they said he was dead because he was barefoot? I've heard that, but not the Paul McCartney one.
It's Paul McCartney who's barefoot, and that was one of them. And the other one, Sgt. Pepper. There's a lot of Sgt. Pepper little, things where like there's a hand is coming over Paul's head, and that's a symbol for death, and there's like a wax figure, and he's looking the other way. It's just all these weird things that some wild, crazy person sat down and was like, hey, I got an idea. I just started putting these together. I want to know who that was. Like, who was the originator of this thing?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I'm like, how did rumors even happen back in the day? You know, like we didn't have internet. We didn't have cell phones. It was like you heard it from somewhere, but where? I could never pinpoint like a source on any of that, but we had all heard the rumor of stuff.
Yeah. Radio was probably big. Like think about War of the Worlds. Like that was a huge deal. Like when that dude came on, it was just a prank, but it freaked everybody in the nation out because they were so dialed into radio. So I could really imagine a radio host having pretty big credibility on that. Just like anything they say is probably kind of gold.
Yeah, that's the power. I kind of want that now.
Literally,
right? Yeah.
especially since there are probably only like a few like channels. Like now you have all of these like social media outlets, accounts, like all of that. Like it all gets so like saturated. But with radio, it was only radio. So yeah, that is crazy.
I'm going to say real quick too. It was shocking to me how many people I had to explain what AF was. I was like, oh yeah, I've got this awesome guest coming out from a haunted AF, and they're like, AF?
Okay,
like, yeah, so you know, and they're like, huh?
I have a very funny story.
Look it up.
My mom, my sweet, poor, wonderful mother, who very Christian, very Texas religious, all that good stuff. When she saw the AF, she was like, "That stands for awesome fun, right?" And so we kind of perpetuate that a lot. Like we actually we did a guest segment on the Kelly Clarkson show, and they were having trouble getting the AF on air because of what it stands for. So we were like, well, we just tell my mom it's awesome fun. And they were like, great, that's perfect. We'll go with it.
Call FCC. It's like, no, it's awesome fun.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's fine. Then I'll take my hand off the button.
It was the loophole.
I love it.
I love it.
I love it. The fact that only AF was not going to make it on. It's not even yours say it, just AF wouldn't make it on the air. That's
yeah, I know. I'm like, nobody's saying the word. It's just implied. Right. You can see it however you want, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of the people that didn't know it were also sweet little old ladies like my mom. so
I weirdly love that. I really do. I think that, I don't know, there's something very genuine about not knowing what the AF stands for. And I really love that.
It's nice there's that naivety still in the world. That's okay. They can. I should if I thought of that, I should have said it's awesome fun.
It's awesome fun. You can just tell everybody else that from here on out. It's fun.
I love it.
Goodness, so fun. Well, hey, I'll let Mary do a brief introduction of herself too, and then we can really dive in.
Thanks. I'm Mary Myers. I'm so excited to be here. Like you said, again, I have been here in the dynamic space since 2018. Sometimes I like to think that I used to say, like, I just got here. And then I realized that, like, time has gone on, and now I'm here. I've been here for a minute. But prior to being in the tech space, I, ran several different SMBs and was office managers and accounting positions and sales positions. So I ran, and held different hats and then got into tech. And so now I really love being able to combine my end user experience with my technical experience. I'm super obsessed with the Power Platform. I kind of like to always say I'm like by the people, for the people. As I started off in user groups. So I'm really passionate about kind of helping and giving back to the community and being really involved. So I really love that I get to be a part of this show. And now today, or I guess I run my own company now, which is WorldMax. And what we do is we specialize in creating, Power Platform solutions for Dynamics companies or companies and users that are using different Dynamics products. So yeah, it's a little bit about me.
You're like the Ghostbuster for systems. When things get really scary, you come in and fix them up. So you're like you're taking away the scary and the spooky.
Exactly. I like it. That's a great analogy.
It all ties in together.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we're here, like we said, we kind of talked about this earlier, but we're here supporting an upcoming event, which is going to happen in San Antonio in just a few weeks. We'll all be there. You'll be close by. Are you where in Texas are you?
Oh, me? I'm in Dallas.
In Dallas. Okay.
Yeah. So it's not too far.
Not too far. We'll be close by. So about 6,000 of us nerdy people in Microsoft user group world will be there learning about Microsoft, listening to Mary speak, and probably having some conference horror stories. This is kind of kicking this off. Like maybe, between each of us, Savannah, you've been to a few and we've talked about some. Let's see if you can dig up a different conference horror story. But just thinking about like, what's your worst conference horror story, Mary?
My worst conference, golly, I have been to a few conferences and I've had a few. So I would say that my worst conference horror story would be when I was in Milan and I was sick and I was like getting sick every day, all day while we were there. And so just like doing that in a foreign country and like having to like manage. In the end, I think it was actually funny enough. I think I was really, really nervous about my session because my session was like on the last day. So it was just like tons of anxiety. But like not being able to kind of deal with that was not a lot of fun. So that doesn't really sound that terrible now, but
for
it
a
feels
whole week,
like, at the time it felt really bad.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
early on.
Yeah, that sucks. And especially like you said, a whole different country. I feel like even if you're in like a different town, like you're just like, oh, I just want to be home. I can't imagine wanting to be in your own country. Like,
yeah. I will say, let me just add one more. It wasn't quite a conference, and so that's why I didn't add it. But like I had started a new job, and so we went for like on-site training, right? So it's travel, related to travel. And so I had my suitcase, and like if we know me, I usually have a few options to change into. You know, I like my outfits and my options for my outfits. So I had my whole suitcase, and I get to this place, and the airport was like maybe 45 minutes away from like where my airport was. And so I grabbed my suitcase, and then I get to my hotel, and it's like now 9:00 at night there. I traveled really far, and I go and I open my suitcase, and those are not my clothes. And this is not my suitcase.
No. Oh no.
And like I had worn like leggings and a sweatshirt like there, you know? And so like I've got nothing, and this is like a brand new job that I'm starting in the morning, and they're doing like photos that they'll use for like your LinkedIn and like your company badge and like everything the next day. And like I don't like I've got to like figure out how to get my bags and my actual stuff, and it's like still 45 minutes away. It's now 9:00 at night, and like the stuff starts at like 8:30 the next morning, and it's like, what do you do?
Right? Did you think for 1 second, let me try some of this stuff on just in case? Like, just let me just see what kind of clothes I got in this bag. What am I working with here?
No,
the men's suit is what am I dealing with?
I would have been like, where's the nearest Target?
Well, the Target wasn't even open. The Target was right there, but like Target wasn't open in time. So I you know, it was a really humbling experience. I showered. I used a fork, like a plastic fork, to brush my wet hair out.
I feel like your Ariel moment.
I love it.
And
a dingle hopper, right?
Like I just put on the clothes that I wore on the airplane, and I thought, oh dear God, here we go. Like, but I was on time. I was like, do I want to be dressed up or do I want to be on time? And I decided on time was the way to go, and at least that would be. And it was very humbling, like no makeup, anything, right? And I didn't die. And it made it really, you know, it was like, so it doesn't really matter. So it ended up being like a good thing. And then my suitcase got there later, and they didn't recognize me the next day when I was actually dressed.
You came back the second day in your regular clothes and makeup. Nice.
They're like, this is you. And I'm like, same person, I know. So I'd say that's the true horror story.
Yes.
That's a good one. The first one was a good lead up. That like got us buffer, and then you hit us with that second one pretty hard.
Yes.
Definitely. Yeah, so there you go.
Oh my goodness.
I think Savannah, probably of all the conferences I've been to, and it wasn't a big deal, but it could be a big deal for somebody if you had anxiety around speaking already and you got a session. And we had what we thought would be a pretty good session last year.
My lights just went off.
Spooky.
We were just talking about that. Yeah, seriously, the amazing fun just kicked in.
Yes.
And we had this. They for whatever reason they put us in the biggest room at the conference. I don't know why. It was like room that was meant for like 4,000 people.
Oh no!
And so there's like chair after chair after chair, and so I'm already like getting some room anxiety. It's like, okay, this is gonna be weird. And you have to corral everybody up to the front because everybody's gonna sit in the back and just spread out. It's like And how many people do we end up having, Savannah? Like 10.
Not many at all.
It could have been a really fun session, and I was just like, we made the best of it. But that would be to me, that can be a huge conference trigger horror story for people. Like, I'm just so afraid I'm gonna do this and nobody shows up.
Yeah. Some people might love that. Oh, go ahead, Mary.
I was just saying, I've had that happen. Like I said, I could probably have horror stories for days. But yeah, I had a session earlier this year, and I get there, and it's your worst nightmare. Not a single solitary person showed up. And again, if that's not like a humbling, like gut check, experience. And I was like, I left. I walked out of there and like I cried. Actually, first, what I did do is one girl was walking in, And I was like, wait, can you come here? She was like walking by. I was like, come here real quick. And I made her take pictures. I just stood there and I took pictures.
No.
I was presenting. We took some film. Like I was presenting.
I thought you were gonna make her sit there. You come here. You sit in the session. I don't care where you're going. It doesn't matter if you were going to deliver that. You sit in here.
I said we're not missing the social media opportunities. So we took some pictures, and then they let me do a session later on. And then people were at that one, but then they couldn't get the tech to work, right? So I had to give a presentation on the Power Platform, but I had no slide deck, no computer or anything, and I just had an hour to sit there and talk. But we made it happen.
It all works out.
Rebekah, any work horror stories? Not like ghostly, but just something that just really.
Well, like along the lines of what you guys were talking about with conferences and stuff like that, we don't really do a whole heck of a lot of conferences. We did do something called the Spooky Spectacle Festival last year, and here's the thing, in my line of work, you just sort of expect like fans to show up and people to know who you are. So there was a moment where we were giving like an hour panel. We were doing like a panel where we're telling ghost stories and stuff that we've heard on the podcast and all that kind of stuff. And we say, hi, we're Rebekah and Julie from Haunted AF. And literally somebody is like, I don't know who you are. And it's like,
they said that out loud.
Yeah, like out loud, audibly to our entire crew that's there. And it's like, oh, that'll kill the mood pretty quick.
Seriously, did you have like social video going too? Like the worst, like
Thank God we did not. No, because it was like a paid for conference, so we weren't posting any of that.
We're streaming live here. It's Julie and Rebekah.
If it had been live, it would have been devastating. Like the ego crush would have been 1,000 times worse. So thankfully, no cameras for that. But that kind of along your lines, that was a horror story for us because it's like, oh crap, nobody knows who we are, nobody cares. Why are we even doing this? You question everything at that point.
Immediately.
Yes. Also, the audacity of that person to just like call out like that. Like,
oh, girl, you would be surprised. Like my 20 years working in radio, I cannot tell you how many times I had people that would send me emails and messages on social media telling me they didn't like my laugh or they didn't like the way I said this or that. Like it is constant. Yeah. And I was like, one time I was like, you're talking to me, right? Like I'm a real person. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, it's hurtful. That's real in radio too. Just hurt.
People love to listen to radio just to hate on it. So they'll listen to you and listen to you and listen to you. Mm-hmm. And then people all this feedback. It's like, if you've got all this feedback about me, you're listening to me an awful lot.
Yeah. Like there must be one thing you like about me, right?
Yeah, what's the deal?
Or like, thanks for the ratings, I guess, if you're continuously. Yeah.
Like, great, you love to hate me, and I appreciate that.
Yes.
It's like people burning their Taylor Swift gear when they get says like, yeah, you paid for this. You know that, right? It's like you're not really doing anything other than burning your own money.
Yeah, makes no sense.
Yeah.
Spooky. Goodness.
Savannah, did you have any conference horror story that you want to share? We told a lot of conference stories, and I know you've got one that was, pretty horrific as far as like waiting around for stuff. But anything else?
No, I don't like speak at conferences or anything to your guys' points. I'm pretty horrified of that for like the reason. Yeah. But I always just have like, I'm in charge of like the booth and like setting those things up. So I have like horror stories in that. I just had one yesterday of our shipment not showing up when it was supposed to and me calling the company. I have my call log. I've literally was like a crazy person, called them at least like 20 times yesterday trying to get this figured out. And they finally showed up today, not at the right time and not with the right stuff, but we got it on the truck and we got it going. So I hope it lands in Texas in a couple weeks.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. It's prayers. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of my horror stories for conferences and things like that. There's always something, but
what about real haunted tales though? We've been talking about kind of, lighthearted, conference mishaps. But what about real haunted tales? Who wants to talk about, something that you've experienced? It can't be like, oh, my cousin's best friend told me this crazy story. Maybe if that's all you got, but if you've got something that you've experienced that
I feel like I should start this because I'm
sure you've got like a catalog of, let me just go through A through Z.
Gajillion stories. But like, and part of the reason why we even started this podcast is both me and my co-host Julie had experiences, and that's kind of what started it. We started off by telling our stories, and then our friends would tell their stories, and so on and so forth. So mine has to do with a shadow person. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of shadow people, but it's like that dark, creepy figure. It's almost like a dark static. And in my house, I lived in McKinney. We lived there for like 10 years. And I think it was attached to an old cabinet that I had. But at night, I'd be sound asleep and I would feel like something was watching me. And I'd roll over and I'd look. And sure enough, in the entrance to the bedroom, there would be this dark shadow figure. And it never felt like that was gonna, hurt me or be oppressive. It was just always watching.
A feeling, yeah.
Yeah, which is super weird. But like I said, once we got rid of that cabinet, we moved out of that house, first of all.
Yeah.
Didn't disclose that there was a weird shadow person upstairs.
That's not part of the law. You don't have to disclose weird shadow people.
It's not. You don't have to tell if you have ghosts or not. You really don't. And then the cabinet that I thought that it was like associated with, it never made it into our new house. It stayed in storage for forever, and we have not had a problem since.
Interesting. I was just picturing you, like you put it in the U-Haul, and then next to you in the U-Haul there was that shadow riding along with you. Like, hey, where are we going?
Yeah, no, thank goodness.
Not you.
I don't know how I would have reacted if it had popped up in the U-Haul with us. I think it would have
seriously attraction.
Yeah.
How do you know it was associated with that cabinet? Like, what made you think that?
I don't even know how to explain it. Like, it was an old cabinet. It was passed on from like I don't know if it was like my great-great-grandfather that made it. So it could have very well been him who made it that was like attached to it or something. That's the vibe I got. And I know it sounds silly to say, like, that's just what you felt. It was as if that shadow person was like imparting that on me. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like without using words, but like putting those feelings on me in a way of like, hey, this is where it comes from. Does that make sense? I sound like a total kook right now.
No, this is going to lead into my story because it was very similar. So I'm just going to jump in because it's just such a similar feeling. And I'm a person who is open to a lot. So it's like I would never say, oh, there's no ghost or anything. Right. Or our, aliens or whatever. It's like, I'm pretty logical and open to everything. But to tie into your story, so I had a great uncle who passed away, and this is maybe 15 years ago. And I went to his funeral, and it was a couple weeks after that I had a dream that I was talking to him. He was in. The weird thing about this, the whole setup is that the dream there was nothing odd about the dream. He was in my room. He was sitting in a chair in my bedroom, which was across from the bed. The bedroom looked like it did the last time I saw it, like, clothes on the floor. And this, there was nothing odd about it. It wasn't a crazy chair or, weird. It looked exactly like my bedroom. Yeah. And he wasn't asking anything weird. He was just like, he was asking questions like, how are you doing? How's my aunt? How's Anita? And I was like, oh, I was just answering and talking. And then the weird part is I was sitting up in bed talking to him and looking across, and I woke up from the dream and I was sitting up in bed and looking at that chair. And like, to your point, I swear I felt and saw like a shadowy thing that kind of just dissipated quickly, but I could just feel this like presence. And it was cold and eerie and who knows what it was, but man, I was like, this is real, because again, it was just like my dream. I was sitting up and it just happened like that. It was like, wow, this is just eerie to me.
And like, we get a lot of stories like that. And like, two of the big rules when it comes to if you're seeing like a ghost or something like that is the temperature change and it dissipates quickly. And it's always kind of like see-through. And then like it's almost like the moment you look at it, they don't stick around very long. And then it's poof, it's gone. 95% of our stories involve those two things for sure.
Yeah, it felt real to me at that moment. I've kept that one. I'll never forget. Like in my mind, I can still picture that dream, and it's so vivid.
Yeah, I believe you.
That's crazy. That gave me goosebumps, Bobby. Literally. Ugh.
Yeah, it gives me goosebumps every time I tell it. It's been a while, but I was thinking of, and that was the first thing I thought. I was like, yeah, I've got to tell this one. This was the realest thing I've ever felt.
Oh my goodness.
I'm just terrified of like I'm the biggest scaredy cat like ever. Like I'll probably have nightmares, and then I will call my son to make him come make sure that there are no ghosts in the room. That's the level that I stay on, is I'm just like always terrified. But it was funny because like when I was growing up, you know, you'd be like, I'd ask my mom, I'd be like, or I'd say, you know, go, I think there's a ghost in my room or something, right? And like your parents are normally like, no, there's nothing there. But she'd be like, oh yeah, what did it say? You know, because she like,
What did it say?
when like I believe in it, like I'm just terrified of it. Do you know what I mean? And so I think that like kind of relates to it, but I don't know that I have any specific story, just because I normally just break down in absolute fear. And if I had a truer encounter, such as y'all were talking about, I would not be here to talk about it.
You just sniff a ghost and you run. It's like I'm not even sticking around. You're like Shaggy and Scooby when they see a ghost and that smoke picks up and you just your feet go and you just.
I feel like there's possibly something that has happened to you, but you're like so anti it that you've just buried it way down deep inside.
I think my grandpa comes to like visit me. So especially like there was a point in my time like at an old house that I lived at, and it was just like I was going through a lot, but my grandpa was like super, super important to me. And I'm always like a wake up early person, and I'd be sitting there at like 4 o'clock in the morning, like working, but also probably like just thinking about a lot of things, probably just kind of like emotional. And all of a sudden it would not be uncommon that all of a sudden there would be like the door that would like slam. And then like I would have like a glass of water just like fall over him. And I just really like, I wasn't scared of that though. I just really felt like it was like my grandpa being like, I'm here, it's okay. So I don't know, you know what I mean? To me, I look at that as more of like a guardian. And like I feel like ghosts and guardians are probably the same, but maybe they can be like people may think that like one's scarier than the other or something.
I think I don't think they're all scary. I don't think they're all like have like a malicious agenda, if you will. I do think there's definitely a guardianship type of ghost, and it's oftentimes family members.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
The cool correlation you make too is like you know, like leading up to that, you're like ghosts never you know, but then you know it shifted to this. Actually, if it's a guardian, it's kind of okay. I kind of feel that, and that's an interesting shift in you know opening that up for sure. Like I didn't feel at all scared when I saw this uncle. It wasn't like I you know felt like I needed to run out of the room. It was more calming, but it was just it was you know interesting. Yeah. But if I saw Slimer, I might be a little more frightened.
Right.
I will say, like, I had one experience in the house that we're in now that it was like, I never saw anything, but I heard it, and it sounded like wailing, like a woman wailing. And I'm like, that couldn't be our neighbors. Like, they're not close enough to us. I don't think anybody would just be wandering around the house, but it sounded like it was coming from the attic in our house. I haven't heard it since, but that one kind of freaked me out a little bit because it wasn't scary, but it wasn't not scary, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
With Mary, it was like, you know, she knew this was her grandfather. I saw my uncle. But if you're just out there, like, I heard this story. I didn't feel it, but this was at work. But at people who worked overnight shift in this warehouse, it was an older building from like the 50s. It had an elevator in the warehouse that went down to a lower floor, but the lower floor had been abandoned for 30, 40 years. The elevator was boarded up. It wasn't working, but they would hear the, you know, creaks and moans from the elevator all the time. They would see shadowy figures in the warehouse. They, you know, claimed to see shadows like deep, you know, down the aisles. They would leave their carts and go, you know, to grab something. The cart would have moved like 2 aisles over, that kind of stuff. Now, who's to say if it was, you know, somebody else in the warehouse screwing with another person or whatever, but there was a lot of reports. They called her, boy, I was trying to remember it. I think it was Warehouse Sally was what that's what they affectionately named this ghost or apparition, all these different things that they would see. But that's scary because you don't know. I mean, if it's at your house, you think it's your grandpa, that's kind of fun and comforting. But if it's like Warehouse Sally, you're like, nah, I don't do that.
We don't mess with
I don't do that at night at midnight when I'm trying to pull clothes and do my job.
That's funny. Yeah, I've never had like an instance like Bobby or Rebekah where I've like seen anything. I feel like I'm more on like Mary's side where I don't know if you guys hear of like angel numbers at all, but they're like these numbers that like can mean different things that you see all the time. And mine and my best friend would always see number 33, more so like specifically in like high school and college. I haven't so much like recently in my life. But I've always had the feeling that it was like also my grandpa, just like if I was having like a hard time or super anxious, then I would like see it more often and things like that. Like there were certain trends where it would pop up more. And I know people would always be like, you just see it because you want to see it. Like you're thinking about it, which could be totally true, but it's hard to believe like not sometimes. So I've never seen like a shadowy figure or anything like that. But it also leads me to believe like Bobby and Rebekah, you both said you're more so like open to it, and Mary and I were like, "Oh no, thank you." Like, I wonder if that has something to do with it too.
It 100% does. Like, if you're open to it, I think you're more likely to pick up on things that are around you for sure. I think if maybe even this is going to sound dumb, but like, you know how kind of the movies will be like they prey on the weakest or whatever. If you're in a bad place, I do think they pick up on that vibe and those emotions and stuff like that, and then they're able to kind of like show themselves more. So I do think there is something to that for sure. And then there's also people who I think they want to see it so bad that they don't, because they want it so bad. I think there's this weird like in between kind of thing. Like for me, I'm like, I'm open to it. I want to see it. I would love it if a ghost would come and like scratch me, but I think I want that too bad. And so it's going to be like, nah, we're not going to mess with you.
The ghosts are like cats. It's like, if you really want to pet a cat, they're like, no, thank you.
Yes.
But if you're just like, oh, like I wouldn't mind if you came up to me. They're like, okay, I'll sniff you out.
I think that's actually the perfect way to describe one for sure. They're like, if we're feeling like it today, sure. If not, whatever.
I like this. So we're going to make this a point of reference in our when we post this, like ghost equal cat.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Yes.
That's a new revelation that I don't know sure that's out there in the world, but Savannah's putting it out there.
Yeah,
I'm glad you brought that up. I thought you were going to go with people. There was people who so want to see ghosts. It's like they're walking around. It's like, I see a shadow. Yeah, it's your shadow, dude. It's right behind you. Everywhere you go, it's going to be there. Oh yeah, you're right. I forgot.
There's definitely people that will do that as well, for sure. And I think I'm guilty of that because I want something so bad to happen in a scary place, and then. But thank God for my partner, Julie, who's like, she'll knock me down a peg. Like, she's like, you idiot, you just want it. You just want it. I'm like, you're right. You're so right.
Yeah. It's fun though. I mean, it's fun, especially if you're doing what you do. You want to get these stories that have credibility, that feel like they fit the mold, that support this type of, paranormal activity. It's awesome.
Absolutely.
I feel like especially in my old house, not so much in my new house, but like in my old house, I always felt like there was somebody there. Like it just always felt like there was a presence, and I would be terrified, especially like when my son wasn't home. And I literally called them boogeyman checks. The amount of time that I called my best friend, Kristen, and like if all hours, now I go to bed at like 9 o'clock at night. So if I call her past like 9 o'clock, she knows that it's a boogeyman check. And so I make her stay on the call with me while I check all the rooms in the house to make sure that there is no boogeyman. And then I can go to sleep. And it finally got to a point where her husband was like, can we just send her some flashlights?
And I feel like we're therapy for Mary. We're like opening these doors. She's like getting all this out, like all this, all these stories are like, she forgot them all in her life. And now she's like, wait a second. Then there was boogeyman checks, and
she's not going to sleep tonight.
I feel like
she's gonna be calling her best friend all night.
Mary, you're not still in that house, right?
No.
Okay, because I was like, we have actually had some stories where people are like, what's happening in my house? And they'll tell us and all this kind of stuff, seeing footprints, handprints, all this kind of stuff. And one of them actually turned out to be, they were in condos.
Yeah.
And somebody was coming in one side of the condo attic and going across and coming down in through her attic door.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, which is even creepier than a ghost. That's a real person milling around. And
in this house, we had like this window. It had like what I'll call, to your point, like a false attic. So like you could see this window up at the top of the house, right? But there was no place in the house that went to that window. And so my son watched that movie, The Watchers. And so then we added into like, it could be like, we just joked around about the person that lived upstairs. But we should move on. This
actually creeps me out more than
out of control. There might actually be somebody in the attic. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I'm not there anymore. That's somebody else's issue.
Yeah, that's way creepier to have a real person in the attic.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. Ugh. I always get scared of that too. We moved into our house and there's like an attic, but there's a tiny door through the room upstairs. And my husband always joke, he's like, that's Annabelle's room. Like, she's going to be sleeping in a rocker. I'm like, shut up. Like, I have to put stuff in this room. Like, don't talk to me like that.
You wait for the right time and you get an Annabelle doll when he's like in the shower or something, and just sit there, you know, the fishing line and just freak him out big. Yeah.
Yes, literally. Get him back.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh my gosh.
Anything else? Any other supernatural stories that we need to get out that, you know, that just we can't, we've covered a pretty good gamut.
We really have. Like, do you want me to tell you maybe our most like famous one that we've had?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
And I think it's so funny because we actually did an interview with the Dallas Observer yesterday and we told this story. And my partner Julie was like, we tell this story all the time. And I was like, yeah, but it's a really good one. And it's one that both she and I have validated, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like, we witnessed it firsthand. So what happened was a friend of ours was like, hey, you've got to talk to my buddy Chris. His house is super haunted. And you can actually go to our YouTube channel and find these Ring doorbell videos. And the first one they send us, the Ring doorbell keeps going off. It's going off every single morning at like 3 a.m., right? And they're like, oh, it's so annoying. It's bugging us at this point. So one day they decide, okay, let's just go back and see. And the first couple of videos, it's nothing crazy's happened, maybe a little orb type situation, nothing big, right? Well, it starts to escalate. And like the following week, they turn the audio to the Ring doorbell on and you hear this like very malicious, like, get out.
Yeah.
Right? And they're like, oh, well, that's not great, but whatever. And then maybe a few days later, you can hear it clear as day. This voice say, I'll kill you.
Oh.
Right? Terrifying.
No.
Yeah. Like, what, I mean, at that point, what do? They just told us the story or whatever. And then they basically just shut off their Ring camera after that. Because they were like, we're tired of it going off. We don't want to hear any more voices telling that they're going to kill us.
Yeah.
Get out. So they just turned it off. They're like, oh, we'll just ignore it. No big deal. So somehow, I don't know if we were like, because it's not that, their house wasn't that far away. We think it was like Weatherford or near Fort Worth or something. But they're like, come on out. Our whole neighborhood is kind of haunted on this side. They were like, just come on out and come hang out with us. And maybe you'll see the ghost or something while you're here. So we decide that we are going to make a wine night out of it. And we are like, we bring every cliche ghost, warding off spirit type thing possible. Like I had a rosary and she went and got some holy water from church. She brought salt to put in a circle around ourselves for
Aging that thing.
Yeah. Had the sage. And keep in mind, we are not ghost hunters. Like we don't know anything about investigating or getting rid of spirits at all. Right. So we're just taking everything we've seen from a movie with us. And I'm not joking. On the way, before we even go over there, Julie and I are texting one another and we're like, nothing is going to happen. Like, this is so dumb. I can't believe we're going to trek all the way across town for a ghost. Like, we just know nothing's going to happen because 9 times out of 10, when you go on any kind of paranormal ghost hunt, nothing happens. We get over there. We're setting up our equipment. We've brought our wine. We're already drinking at this point. And and back then, Facebook Lives was like all the rage. So we're like, we'll do a Facebook Live. And I'm setting up my phone and it's on the tripod. It's sitting right there. And suddenly the Ring doorbell starts shooting static at us. Like making that staticky noise that
Was it not turned on? So at this point they had it off or they turned it back on?
I guess it was. They had turned it back on at some point. But yeah, we go over there and it's shooting static at us. And I'm not kidding you. All I had to do was press record on my phone and I couldn't. It was like I was frozen in time. Julie and I are looking at each other and literally making eye contact for what seems like eternity. And we're like, we're like, this is crazy. The doorbell's going off. We can't do anything about it. And it finally stops and it's like, we're able to move again. And I was like, how can I not press record? And she was like, why didn't you press record? And I was like, I don't know. I couldn't press record. It was like, I couldn't do anything. So we asked the owner, we were like, hey, can you go grab the Ring doorbell video so that we can see what it was on that end?
Yeah.
And when he pulled the video, he brought it on his phone and showed it to us. And I'm not kidding you. it was a frozen image of myself and Julie on the camera, frozen. We were not moving. Nothing was happening. And the static was going in real time.
Wow.
So it was, I mean, that's pretty freaking crazy, right?
Yeah, that is. I mean, that's when were you outside the house? So you would walk up to the house and you were setting up camp right outside the doorbell.
Yep.
Wow.
That's exactly, like, we're literally in the walkway. That she's by the door and by the Ring doorbell, and I'm on the other side, and you can see us clear as day.
Yeah.
But it's just a picture of us. There's no movement, no nothing, and just static. And then later on, they make fun of me. Like later on, like some other things started happening. Like the garage doors started going up on the street, and the lights started flickering on and off and stuff like that. It was wild. We've never experienced anything to that level.
Yeah.
Since.
Mm-hmm.
That's fun. And how long ago? This is a couple years ago, 3 or 4 years ago?
This was in our first season, so it's been at least 4 years since that's happened. But the fact that they're experiencing it, and they were like, we can hear, clear as day that I'll kill you on the Ring doorbell, and then that we go over there to jokingly investigate, and something happens within the first 10 minutes of being there.
Yeah.
I mean, I just feel like that's the most real story you can get when you've got multiple people validating it. And like I said, we experienced it for ourselves
firsthand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like it's also, it's so cool that, like you said, most of the time these stories are real to the person that it happened to at that time. But when you go back and try to recreate it, that ghost is like, like the cat story. No, I'm not having it today. I'll do it when I want to do it.
Yeah.
Not on your time.
That's why every ghost show you see on TV, it's like, it's 25 minutes of absolute nothing, and then some little something at the end, if that. Yeah. I mean, in all honesty, I'm not sure I've ever watched a ghost show that's caught anything.
Right.
That's wild.
So do those people still live in that house, or what happened with these people?
Nope, they do. They still live in that house. As far as I know, everything is fine. I think they have had their house saged and stuff by a real professional before. But yeah, as far as I know,
on at this point, and no death threats.
I think they're just used to it at this point. They're kind of like, we gave up. Like, we're cool.
Yeah, Phil.
Each other alone. Yeah,
it's no big deal.
Yeah.
Funny.
Jesus. It's the adult version of just putting your head under the covers.
Yeah.
Like, just turn off the rain.
Yeah. Or like we were talking about at the beginning of our conversations, we were talking about weather. It's like you're so used to it now. It's like whatever. That's just Barry, the ghost. Yeah, he'll threaten you, but he never does anything. Exactly. All bark and no bite, right, Barry?
Mm-hmm. It all came full circle this episode. That's for sure.
Wow.
Speaking of which, we're getting close to the end of it, and we haven't talked at all about speaking and how to avoid having the horror stories we talked about. Mary, you want to pitch us out some ideas for folks that are doing this for the first time, maybe the third time, whatever time, to think about when you are speaking at a session? What should you remember?
Yeah, so here's a couple quick tips that I have for whenever I'm speaking. First, I always like to go check out your room, right? Check out your room before
Sage it.
Yeah,
definitely.
What?
You're sold.
Is that what you said? Stage it?
Sage it, but you sage it. You sage it.
You could ward off any horrible spirits.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could also just kind of say, hey, am I going to have a big pole in my, you know what I mean? Like, I just think kind of knowing like what you have to deal with, because I've had that happen sometimes, right? And so it's like, cool, if I know that, then I'm going to get in there a little bit early. I'm going to switch it over. I'm just going to put this here. I need to make sure I have a clicker, right? It gives you the opportunity to kind of like flex if you need to meet like the best room environment, right? And so for me, I think speaking, the most important thing about speaking is confidence, right? And so the tips that I have really kind of go around to how can I get rid of my fears so that I can show up most confident, because that's what makes the difference between, I think, a good presentation and not a good presentation, right? Or it's just how do you feel about it? So check out your room first, right? That way you can account for anything that may, again, any obstacles that may be in your way or any fun things that you may decide that you want to do. Then the next thing that I would say is nail your first 30 seconds, your first 30 to 45 seconds, because the scariest thing that you do is get started, right? And so if you can take that part away, just really focus on that part. Of course, you're going to like focus on the other stuff too, But like, if you over rehearse it, people ask me like, oh, do you need to see your speaker notes? And like, speaker notes, I don't use those. You know, I'm really kind of like ad-libbing it. Well, because I've already gone through it, right? Like, I know what I want to talk about. I've structured my slides like in that purpose. But what I really focus on is, what is my intro? What is my hook? Is it a joke? Is it funny? Have something that's going to bring your audience in and that's relevant, and be comfortable with that. You know, that's what I would say that you would focus on, because as long as you get kicked off going, once you get rolling, then you see, okay, nobody's going to bite my head off. People are smiling at me. Like, this is okay. So that's kind of what I like to say, is like, get in there and just really make sure that you're comfortable with that. Sometimes if I have an opportunity, I'll do that right on stage, or I'll do that while I'm getting ready that day, right? Like the first thing, like I'm just really owning that. If you have a demo, right? So if you have a demo presentation, that's usually pretty common. If you're super comfortable with your demo, right? If you're more of a technical person and you're terrified of the speaking part, do your demo first. I've had to do that in the past. Do your demo first. Again, whatever is going to make you feel more confident, do that part first, because then the rest of it, after you get going, it's not a big deal. You don't care as much, right? So don't be afraid to switch that out. I like to personally either do demo first and then presentation, or presentation and then demo. It does get a little bit choppy going back and forth unless you've practiced going back and forth between your slides and your computer screen. Amber Bell, shout out to her. She is a saint. She recently gave me a tip that helped me get a lot better at that. It's just kind of in some PowerPoint slide settings. So practice that. That's what I would say for that as well. And then be yourself, like just have fun and be yourself. And that's again, kind of like the confidence thing is, I used to worry when I would get put up behind somebody like really big, and this is like for virtual presentations. And I was like, I can't be this person. I can't be as good as this person. And then I reminded myself that like, you're right. I will never be a good that person, but I can be a good me. That's what I can do. I can be like the best version of myself. So yeah, so just be really authentic in like whatever your presentation is. And the more you that you are, even if it feels like awkward and weird and you're like, I don't really want people to know my weird side, do it. Because that's what makes you stand out. Like people like my presentations, I would say, not because they're the most technically glorified presentations ever, because they're not boring. You know what I mean? I don't have 3,000 words on a slide. We're going to have fun. I'm going to put things in like a really funny way. You're like, I never thought about that. There's this this one girl, she calls the filter glass on Business Central, she calls it the martini glass. She's like, you'll never think of it differently. And you're right, you will never think of it differently, right? But it's like doing that. If you're a first-time speaker, just be yourself. Don't worry about being somebody else, because that's what's going to make you, you know, stand out. And take criticism with a grain of salt. That's what I would say too, right? Some of it will be good, and it's good to take some feedback. It really is to take some good feedback. But, you know, some people, haters gonna hate, right? I think we were talking about that earlier, and some people are just like not going to be like that, and they could just be jealous because they aren't up there presenting. And so don't worry about it. Don't take it to heart at the end of the day either, and just have fun. So yeah, those are my tips on speaking, I would say, at a conference.
I'm going to uplift a couple of those. One, you said, you know, the people making them smile. And when you're at these conferences, it's not like you're doing stand-up where you're going to get heckled off. They want you to succeed. So keep that in mind. I might get heckled off, but Mary's never going to get heckled off. And they want you to be successful in your presentation. So they're there with you, just, you know, rooting for you the whole time. And that's just another level of comfort for you in all of that. So I just wanted to point that out, because that's an important one to remember.
For sure.
And I love being yourself. Mary's so good at this. And you just kind of get up there and you're genuine and you're earnest. And that goes so much further than trying to read something that's perfectly prepared. You could have a perfectly written speech, and I love writing, but anytime I've ever tried to do that, it sounds awful. It sounds like, oh, here's this guy reading something, and rather just kind of let it go. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mary, you are very good at that. I remember one session you posted, it was at Topgolf. It might've been in Colorado or something. Yeah. But you did like a comparison with golfing and your solution and everything. I just remember I was like, that is so good. And I love when people do that. So yeah, that was very cool.
Makes it, you know, I think it's just one of those things, right? It really just says it makes it memorable. Doesn't matter who does that, right? It's just, hey, saying, let's do something different. What do people know you for? And stepping outside the thing and saying, let's do it, you know? So I think that's kind of the key to it.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, good tips.
And despite our horror stories, our theme is you don't have to be scared of speaking. Go in there, be confident, and 9 times out of 10 it will go great. So,
and if you are afraid of speaking and you want to talk to somebody, Mary's done it a ton. You can, I'm sure if you approach her before your session and ask her in person some tips or get some extra tips, or myself, go for it. We're always open for that. It's fun to share and help build that speaking community.
I'm going to add 2 more tips. Actually, I just thought about one. I get nervous. Like I said before, like I've been known to get super, super nervous before I speak, right? But the way that I made it not scary is 9 times out of 10, if you come into my session, I'm going to be blasting Taylor Swift before the session because that's what calms me down. Again, it's just doing something fun. So find something like just take some Zen time before. Like to me, like music always helps. Just like pump yourself up before. And like if you tell yourself that you're scared, then you're going to be scared. So just tell yourself that you're a rock star and you're going to be a rock star.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
I've always felt though, before you're about to go public speaking or whatever, like if you're not nervous, something's wrong.
And that's the other thing that people say too. That's 100%. It shows that you care. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like a way to like manage it. It's good to have a healthy level of fear.
There's a healthy level of anxiety or nervousness. I do a lot of stage acting, and we just did a show a couple of weeks ago, and I love it. I do it all the time. I've gotten really good at not being, overly nervous or to the point where I'm like shaking. But just before, we're getting ready to go on, I opened the show. So I was part of the beginning. And so I had to wait for the cue, and then boom, I'm the first thing out there. And I was backstage in the dark waiting for things to start. And there was just a little butterfly just as I was getting ready to do it. But it was a good butterfly. It was like, it was kind of like, I'm there to motivate you, butterfly, as opposed to like drag you. No, don't do it. It was the angel, not the devil.
The last thing that I'll add there is that if everything goes wrong, your demo fails, something won't come up, right? You're not going to die. It is not that scary. I have seen Charles Lamanna's technical or like his demos fail at keynotes, and he is still here. He still has a job, and you will too. So it will be okay. It happens to the best of everyone. And so if you think that your presentation is going to go without a technical glitch, you're just kidding yourself. So just accept and embrace the technical difficulties that happen.
The room you're in is likely filled with ghosts of people past having that same issue. Oh, me too.
Hey, you would be surprised at how much technology fails when it's something ghosty. Like batteries die, lights like to go out. I'm just saying.
Projectors, all kinds. I mean, it never fails. It never fails.
Oh my goodness. Well, I think that is all we had to talk about here, right, Bobby? Do you have anything else you want to close out with saying?
I think we could go on for another hour, but we got to let people go back to to life now. So we appreciate having everybody on. This is awesome.
This has been so fun. Yeah, thank you, Mary and Rebekah, for joining us. This is one of my favorite episodes for sure. So,
thank you so much.
Yeah, cool. Well,
Mary, we'll see you soon. Rebekah, thank you so much. And
absolutely.
And I didn't even talk about all the San Antonio ghost stories I have, by the way, but for another time.
I'm telling you, I could go on for like days and days on ghost stories. And I don't even feel like I gave you the best.
Those were
good. We got a lot, though. We really appreciate it.
Yes.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks,
Bye, guys. Thank you.